The great crystal hall of Nexus Prime sparkled with thousands of lights as alien beings from across the galaxy gathered for the most important meeting in decades. The massive dome stretched high above their heads, its walls made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue energy. Representatives from 47 different worlds sat in their special seats, each designed for their unique body shapes and needs. Ambassador Helen Carter stood at the center of the hall, feeling very small among all the giant creatures around her. She wore her best diplomatic uniform, the dark blue fabric crisp and clean, with Earth's flag patch clearly visible on her shoulder. Her hand stayed steady as she held the datapad containing humanity's application to join the Galactic Council, even though her heart was beating fast. The air hummed with the sound of translation devices working overtime. Clicks, whistles, roars, and electronic beeps filled the space as dozens of different languages were converted into something everyone could understand. Helen had attended many important meetings during her 20 years as a diplomat, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. At the front of the hall sat the Council's most powerful members. Zektar of the Vorthek Empire dominated the center position, his 12-foot frame covered in thick, dark scales that reflected the crystal light like polished armor. His yellow eyes, each the size of dinner plates, watched Helen with obvious amusement. When he breathed, steam came from his nostrils, and his forearms ended in claws that could cut through steel. To his left floated Counselor Thren of the Ethereal Collective, a being of pure energy contained within a crystal shell shaped like a giant diamond. Blue light danced inside the crystal as the creature's thoughts moved faster than any computer. The Ethereal Collective had mastered technology that humans could barely understand, turning entire stars into power sources for their civilization. Helen cleared her throat and began her presentation. She had practiced these words 1,000 times, but speaking them here felt completely different. Honored members of the Galactic Council, I come before you today representing the people of Earth. We seek membership in your great alliance, hoping to contribute our knowledge, culture, and friendship to the galactic community. A sound like grinding rocks filled the hall as Zektar laughed. Several other large creatures joined in, their various forms of laughter creating a chorus that made Helen's bones vibrate. She waited for the noise to die down, keeping her expression calm and professional. "Continue, little creature," Zektar said, his voice booming through the translation system. "Tell us what your tiny world believes it can offer to beings who have conquered entire star systems." Helen activated her datapad, and holographic images appeared in the air above her head. Pictures of Earth's great cities, its art and music, its scientific achievements, and its diverse cultures rotated slowly for all to see. Humanity has achieved remarkable progress in science, technology, and the arts. We have explored our entire planet from the deepest ocean trenches to the highest mountains. We have built societies based on cooperation and mutual respect. Cooperation? The voice came from Counselor Vrax of the Hive Collective, an insect-like creature with 100 eyes covering its triangular head. Your species fights constant wars among yourselves. Your planet is divided into hundreds of separate nations that cannot agree on the simplest matters. Helen felt heat rise in her cheeks but kept her voice steady. It's true that we have conflicts, but we also have an amazing ability to come together when we face big challenges. Our diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. "Diversity," repeated Thren, the word somehow carrying a tone of cold dismissal, despite coming from a being of pure energy. "We have analyzed your species extensively. Humans average 1.7 meters in height and weigh approximately 70 kilograms. Your bone density is among the lowest of any sapient species we have encountered. Your muscle mass is insufficient for survival in most galactic environments." The crystal being projected new images into the air, showing detailed scans of human anatomy next to other galactic species. Compared to the massive Vorthak or the armored Kethfer, humans look like fragile children. "Your sensory capabilities are equally limited," Thren continued. "You cannot see in the infrared or ultraviolet spectrums. Your hearing range is narrow. You lack natural electromagnetic sense. Most concerning, you cannot survive in any environment other than your birth world without artificial life support. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Helen noticed several species nodding their heads, or whatever passed for heads in their particular anatomy. The aquatic dominion representative, a creature that looked like a combination of whale and octopus, spoke next. Surface dwellers who cannot breathe water, the aquatic being said through its translation device. How can such limited creatures contribute to civilizations that span entire ocean worlds? Their technology is primitive as well, added a voice from the Silicon Brotherhood section. The speaker appeared to be made entirely of living metal, its body reflecting the crystal light in sharp, geometric patterns. They have barely achieved chemical propulsion for space travel. They have no faster-than-light capability. Their computers are thousands of years behind current galactic standards. Helen tried to interrupt, to explain humanity's rapid technological progress, but Zektar raised one massive clawed hand for silence. The Vorthak leader's eyes gleamed with something that might have been hunger. "Let us examine the military record of this species," Zektar announced. "The Vorthak Empire has conquered 17 star systems through strength and superior tactics. We have defeated enemies 3 times our size and civilizations with technology far advanced beyond our own. What military achievements can humanity claim?" Helen's mouth felt dry. She knew this question would come, but hearing it in this context made her realize how hopeless their situation really was. Humanity has never conquered other worlds, but we have defended our own against many threats. We have survived ice ages, natural disasters, and conflicts that tested our ability to work together. Conflicts against other humans, Zektar pointed out. You have never faced a truly alien enemy. You have never fought for survival against creatures that could crush your cities with their bare hands. Their largest military units number in the thousands, added another voice from the warrior species section. The Krex Dominion fields battle fleets with millions of soldiers. A single Krex warrior is worth 100 of these humans in combat. The criticisms came faster now, each species adding their own reasons why humanity was too weak, too primitive, or too limited to join the galactic community. Helen listened to each one, her heart sinking as she realized that no matter what she said, these beings had already made up their minds. The debate continued for hours. Every positive quality Helen mentioned was dismissed or compared unfavorably to the achievements of other species. Human art was called primitive next to the reality-shaping works of the ethereal collective. Human science was laughed at when compared to civilizations that had unlocked the secrets of space and time. Human culture was seen as chaotic and undisciplined, compared to the perfect order of hive minds and collective consciousness. As the day wore on, Helen began to understand that this was not really a fair evaluation. The Council had invited humanity to apply, but they had no intention of accepting them. This was a show, a demonstration to the galaxy that some species were simply not worthy of joining the great powers among the stars. Finally, as the crystal walls began to dim with the setting of Nexus Prime's twin suns, Zektar stood to his full impressive height. His scales caught the fading light as he looked down at Helen with obvious contempt. "We have heard enough," the Vorthak leader announced. "This species is clearly too weak and primitive to contribute anything meaningful to our alliance. However, we are not without mercy. We offer humanity one final chance to prove their worth." Helen felt a chill run down her spine. Something in Zektar's tone warned her that whatever came next would not be good for humanity. "Send us your greatest warrior," Zektar continued, his voice carrying clearly through the vast hall. "Let them face our champion in single combat. If your warrior can defeat our chosen fighter, we will reconsider your application. When they fail, as they surely must, humanity will abandon all claims to council membership for the next 1,000 years." The hall erupted in excited chatter as the various species discussed this unexpected development. Helen stood frozen, realizing that humanity had just been challenged to an impossible task. She had seen the files on Vorthak warriors. They were living weapons, bred for combat and trained from birth to kill. No human could possibly survive a fight against such a creature. Do you accept this challenge, little human? Zektar asked, his yellow eyes gleaming with anticipation. Helen knew. She had no choice. To refuse would mean immediate rejection and the end of humanity's hopes for galactic membership. To accept meant sending someone to their death in front of the entire galaxy. But perhaps there was a small chance, some possibility that human cleverness might find a way to win against impossible odds. We accept your challenge, Helen said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall despite her fear. Zektar's laughter boomed through the crystal dome as the council session ended. The secure conference room in the Pentagon was filled with tension as thick as smoke. President Karen Walsh sat at the head of the long table, her face showing the weight of the impossible decision she had to make. Around her, the most powerful military leaders in America argued about humanity's response to the alien challenge. General Frank Morrison slammed his coffee cup down hard enough to make everyone jump. The old soldier had fought in 3 wars and earned more medals than most people could count, but he had never faced anything like this. "This is insane," he said, his voice rough with anger. "They want us to send one person to fight their champion so they can kill him in front of the whole galaxy. It's nothing but a public execution." Admiral Betty Clark leaned forward in her chair, her Navy uniform crisp despite the late hour. "Frank's right. We've seen the intelligence reports on Vorthek warriors. They're over 8 feet tall, weigh close to 1,000 pounds, and have natural armor. No human has ever survived hand-to-hand combat with one." Dr. Lisa Park, the head of NASA's Alien Research Division, pulled up holographic displays showing detailed scans of various alien species. The images rotated slowly above the table, each one more frightening than the last. "The data is clear," she said quietly. "Their bone density is 3 times ours. Their muscle fibers are designed for combat. They have redundant organs, so even serious injuries won't stop them. Then what do you suggest?" President Walsh asked. "Do we just give up? Tell the galaxy that humanity isn't worth fighting for?" The room fell silent. Everyone knew that refusing the challenge would end any hope of joining the galactic community. Earth would remain isolated, cut off from the knowledge and resources of dozens of advanced civilizations. General Morrison rubbed his tired eyes. "If we have to do this, we send our best. Navy SEALs, Delta Force, maybe someone from the units that don't officially exist. At least they'll go down fighting. And accomplish what?" Admiral Clark shot back. "We'll lose our best warrior and prove to the galaxy that humans are exactly as weak as they think we are." The argument continued for hours as they debated every possible choice. Special Forces operators, Marine Corps champions, even Olympic athletes were considered and rejected. Each name brought the same conclusion: no human could match the raw physical power of an alien war machine. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in Virginia Beach, Chief Petty Officer Jake Sullivan was finishing his morning workout at the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility. The gym was empty except for him, which was how he preferred it. Jake believed that the hardest battles were fought against yourself, and he had been fighting that battle every day for 15 years. At 32, Jake was smaller than most people expected a Navy SEAL to be. He stood just under 6 feet tall and weighed about 180 pounds. But every ounce was muscle and bone, hardened by years of the toughest training the military could provide. His brown hair was cut short, and his blue eyes had the calm, steady look of someone who had seen combat and lived to tell about it. The other SEALs called him Ghost, partly because of his ability to move without being seen or heard, and partly because he seemed to appear wherever he was needed most. Jake had served 3 combat tours in the most dangerous places on Earth, and he had never lost a man under his command. He was working through his daily routine of pull-ups when his phone buzzed with an urgent message. Within minutes he was dressed and driving toward a building that didn't appear on any map. The message had been simple: report immediately for classified briefing. The briefing room was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The walls were covered with screens showing images of alien worlds and creatures that looked like they came from science fiction movies. At the center of it all sat Admiral Susan Hayes, the highest-ranking naval officer Jake had ever met face to face. Admiral Hayes was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She had climbed to the top of the Navy through pure competence and an iron will that had never bent under pressure. When she spoke, people listened. "Sullivan, sit down," she said without any formal greeting. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. If you repeat any of this to anyone without authorization, you'll spend the rest of your life in a military prison. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am," Jake replied, settling into the chair across from her. Admiral Hayes activated a holographic display that showed the scene from the Galactic Council meeting. Jake watched Ambassador Carter present humanity's case and saw the alien creatures dismiss humans as weak and primitive. His expression never changed, but his hands tightened slightly when he heard their laughter. "The aliens have challenged us to single combat," Admiral Hayes explained. "Send our best warrior to fight their champion? If we win, they'll consider us for membership. If we lose, humanity is banned from the galactic community for 1,000 years." Jake studied the images of the Vorthic warrior that appeared above the table. The creature was massive, covered in natural armor, and armed with claws that could cut through steel. Any normal person would have been terrified just looking at it. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am?" Jake asked. "Granted, this is a setup. They don't want us to win. They want to prove that humans are weak by killing one of us in front of everyone." Admiral Hayes nodded. "That's exactly what this is. The question is whether we're going to let them get away with it." She leaned forward, her voice becoming more intense. "Sullivan, I've read your file. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. You've done things that most people would consider impossible. You've survived situations that killed better men. But I need to be completely honest with you about this mission." The Admiral paused, choosing her words carefully. "This is a suicide mission. The alien champion has fought over 300 battles and never lost. He's killed warriors from dozens of different species, some of them much stronger than humans. The odds of you surviving this fight are essentially zero." Jake sat quietly for a moment, processing the information. He had faced long odds before, but nothing like this. Still, something about the challenge appealed to him. Throughout his career, he had succeeded by finding ways to win when winning seemed impossible. "What equipment am I allowed to use?" he asked. Admiral Hayes smiled for the first time since he had entered the room. "The Council rules say each fighter can use standard galactic equipment. Energy shields, plasma weapons, basic enhancement suits. We've been studying alien technology for months, trying to understand how it works." She pressed a button, and the display changed to show various pieces of alien equipment. "The enhancement suit will boost your strength and speed by about 30%. The energy shield can stop most attacks, but it has limited power. The plasma rifle is more powerful than anything we have, but it's also heavier and harder to use." Jake studied each piece of equipment carefully, his tactical mind already working through possible strategies. "How much time do I have to prepare?" 72 hours, Admiral Hayes replied. "Not much time to learn how to use alien technology and develop a fighting strategy." "Ma'am, I have one more question," Jake said. "Why me?" "There are SEALs with more experience, Marines who are bigger and stronger. Why did you choose me for this mission?" Admiral Hayes stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the training grounds where young sailors were learning to become warriors. "Because, Sullivan, this isn't about being the biggest or strongest. This is about being smart enough to find a way to win when there is no way to win. It's about representing the best of what humanity can be." She turned back to face him. "Every other candidate we considered approached this as a straight fight. They wanted to match strength against strength, speed against speed, but you're different. You see problems from angles that other people miss. You find solutions that shouldn't exist." Jake stood at attention. "I understand, ma'am. When do I leave for training?" "Right now," Admiral Hayes said. "There's a car waiting outside to take you to the facility. You'll work with our best scientists and combat instructors. They'll teach you everything we know about alien fighting techniques and technology." As Jake reached the door, Admiral Hayes called out one last time. Sullivan, I want you to know something. Win or lose, you're doing something that matters. You're showing the galaxy that humans don't back down from a challenge, no matter how impossible it seems. Jake paused with his hand on the door handle. Ma'am, with respect, I'm not planning to lose. The Admiral's smile was fierce and proud. I was hoping you'd say that. Go show those aliens what a human can do. As Jake left the briefing room, he felt the weight of humanity's future settling on his shoulders. In 72 hours he would face an enemy unlike anything he had ever encountered. The alien champion was bigger, stronger, and had decades more combat experience. But Jake had something the aliens didn't understand: the absolute refusal to give up. No matter what the odds, he had been trained by the best military in human history. He had survived battles that should have killed him. He had learned to think faster, move smarter, and fight harder than his enemies expected. Now he would find out if that was enough to save his species from 1,000 years of isolation. The car was waiting outside, just as Admiral Hayes had promised. As Jake climbed into the back seat, he began planning his preparation routine. The secret facility hidden in the mountains of Colorado looked like something from a science fiction movie. Jake Sullivan stood in the main laboratory, surrounded by equipment that human scientists had built by copying alien technology. The next 3 days would determine whether he lived or died, and whether humanity earned its place among the stars. Dr. Richard Stone, a thin man with thick glasses and graying hair, led Jake through the equipment room. The former MIT professor had spent the last 6 months studying every piece of alien technology that Earth had managed to acquire. His hands shook slightly as he picked up the first item, a suit that looked like it was made from liquid metal. This is the Galactic Standard Combat Enhancement Suit, Dr. Stone explained, holding up the strange garment. It responds to the wearer's nervous system and can increase your strength by about 30%. The material is nearly indestructible and can seal itself if punctured. Jake took the suit and examined it carefully. The material felt warm to the touch and seemed to shift and flow like water. How does it work? We're not entirely sure, Doctor, Stone admitted. The technology is based on principles we don't fully understand yet, but our tests show that it bonds with human physiology quite well. You'll feel stronger and faster while wearing it, and it will protect you from most forms of energy weapons. The next item was a rifle unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Instead of bullets, it fired concentrated plasma that could cut through steel. The weapon was heavier than human guns and had a completely different balance, but Jake's military training helped him adapt quickly to its weight and feel. The plasma rifle has 3 power settings, Dr. Stone continued. Low power for stunning, medium for penetrating armor, and high power for maximum damage. Be careful with the high setting because it drains the power cell very quickly. Jake spent hours learning to handle the alien weapons. The rifle's targeting system worked differently from human scopes, using energy signatures instead of visual sighting. The controls were designed for creatures with different hand shapes, but Jake's fingers were nimble enough to adapt to the alien interface. The energy shield generator was the most complex piece of equipment. It created a barrier of pure energy that could stop most attacks, but managing its power levels required constant attention. Jake practiced turning it on and off quickly, learning to conserve power while still maintaining protection. Remember, Dr. Stone warned, the shield will only last about 10 minutes under heavy attack. After that, you're on your own. While Jake learned to use alien technology, Dr. Angela Martinez worked on preparing his mind for the psychological challenges ahead. The military psychologist had helped soldiers deal with extreme stress for over 20 years, but she had never prepared anyone for combat in front of an audience of alien species. The pressure will be unlike anything you've experienced, Dr. Martinez explained as they sat in her office. Thousands of alien beings will be watching you, most of them hoping to see you fail. The translation systems will pick up their comments, so you'll hear exactly what they think of humans. Jake nodded, his expression calm. I've been shot at by people who wanted me dead. Alien spectators don't really change the equation. This is different, Dr. Martinez insisted. You're not just fighting for your own survival. You're fighting for the future of our entire species. That kind of pressure can break even the strongest minds. They spent hours working through mental exercises designed to help Jake stay focused under extreme stress. Meditation techniques, breathing exercises, and visualization methods that would help him maintain clarity even when everything seemed hopeless. The key is to treat it like any other mission, Dr. Martinez advised. You have an objective, you have tools to accomplish it, and you have the training to succeed. Don't think about the larger implications. Just focus on the immediate task. Jake also spent time studying everything humanity knew about Vorthek fighting techniques. Video recordings from previous council challenges showed their warriors in action, and the footage was not encouraging. Vorthek fighters relied on overwhelming physical power, using their massive strength and natural armor to crush opponents quickly. Their tactics are straightforward, explained Colonel Pete Adams, a combat instructor with 30 years of experience. They charge forward, absorb whatever damage you can deal out, and tear you apart with their claws. Simple, but effective. When you're that much bigger and stronger than your opponent. Jake watched the videos carefully, noting how the alien champions moved and fought. They were fast despite their size, and their natural armor made them nearly impossible to hurt with conventional weapons. Previous challengers had tried to match them strength for strength, and all had failed badly. What about their weaknesses? Jake asked, and Colonel Adams shook his head. That's the problem. We haven't found any obvious ones. Their armor covers most of their body, they have redundant organs, and their bone structure is designed for combat. The only vulnerable spots we can identify are the joints between armor plates, but those are small targets. Jake studied the footage. Again, this time looking for patterns in how the Vorthek warriors moved. Every fighter had habits, preferred techniques, and unconscious behaviors that could be exploited. He just had to find them. On the final day of preparation, Jake underwent a complete medical examination. The doctors gave him a series of injections designed to help his body adapt to the alien environment on Nexus Prime. The shots made him feel sick for several hours, but they would allow him to breathe the alien atmosphere and survive the different gravity. Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead medical officer, checked his vital signs one last time. Your body is in perfect condition, she said, though her voice carried obvious worry. But I have to tell you, we have no idea what the long-term effects of the alien environment might be. We're essentially experimenting on you. I understand the risks, Jake replied. How long do I have before the treatments wear off? About a week, maybe less. That should be more than enough time for the challenge, assuming. She didn't finish the sentence, but Jake knew what she meant. Assuming he survived long enough for it to matter, the journey to Nexus Prime took 18 hours aboard humanity's first faster-than-light spacecraft. The ship was built using a combination of human engineering and alien technology that Earth's scientists barely understood. Jake spent most of the trip in meditation, running through combat scenarios in his mind and preparing for what was coming. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, the ship's commander, briefed him on the flight plan during their approach to the alien world. We'll dock at the orbital station above Nexus Prime. From there, you'll take a shuttle down to the surface with the diplomatic team. Jake looked out the ship's viewport at his first sight of an alien world. Nexus Prime was unlike anything he had ever imagined. The planet's surface was covered with massive crystal formations that stretched up from the ground like geometric mountains. The largest crystals were taller than Earth's highest skyscrapers, and they all glowed with soft, colorful light. Beautiful, Jake said quietly. And dangerous, Captain Rodriguez replied. The crystals generate intense electromagnetic fields that can interfere with most technology. The aliens have learned to work with the energy, but it could cause problems. With your equipment? The shuttle ride to the surface was smooth, but Jake could feel the weight of what was coming. As they descended through the alien atmosphere, he got his first close look at the crystal city where the council meetings were held. The buildings grew out of the ground like living things. their walls transparent and filled with flowing energy. Ambassador Helen Carter met Jake at the landing pad. She looked tired and worried, but her diplomatic training kept her voice steady. The challenge is scheduled for tomorrow morning. The council has been discussing the rules all day. What kind of rules? Jake asked as they walked toward the guest quarters. Standard galactic combat protocols, Ambassador Carter explained. Single combat, no outside assistance, fight continues until one warrior cannot continue. The arena is about the size of a football field, with energy barriers to protect the spectators. They passed groups of alien beings as they walked through the crystal corridors. Jake noticed how they stared at him, their various forms of eyes tracking his movement with obvious curiosity. He caught fragments of translated conversation, most of it expressing amusement or pity at the small human who thought he could challenge. A Vorthic warrior. Remember, Ambassador Carter said as they reached his quarters, this isn't just about winning or losing. Every species in the galaxy will be watching how you conduct yourself. Your behavior reflects on all of humanity. Jake's room was a crystal chamber with walls that glowed softly in the darkness. The bed was designed for human physiology, one of the few accommodations the aliens had made for their guests. He spent his last night running through his preparation routines, checking his equipment and preparing his mind for the battle ahead. As he lay in the alien bed, listening to the strange sounds of the crystal city around him, Jake thought about everything that had led to this moment. 3 days ago, he had been a Navy SEAL doing routine training exercises. Now he was about to fight for the future of his entire species. The alien champion was bigger, stronger, and more experienced. The crystal arena had been transformed overnight into something that looked like a battlefield from another world. The transparent walls now pulsed with energy barriers that created a fighting space the size of 2 football fields. Above them, thousands of alien spectators filled the viewing sections, their diverse forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that hurt to look at directly. Jake Sullivan stood at the entrance to the arena, wearing the alien combat suit that felt like a second skin. The enhancement technology hummed quietly around his body, making him feel stronger and faster than he had ever felt before. His plasma rifle hung across his back, and the energy shield generator was attached to his belt. Everything had been checked and double-checked. But he knew that no amount of preparation could truly ready him for what was coming. Ambassador Carter stood beside him, her face pale but determined. Remember, Jake, you're representing all of humanity today. Whatever happens, make us proud. I will, ma'am, Jake replied. His voice calm despite the chaos around them. The noise from the spectator sections was incredible. Thousands of alien voices created a sound like nothing Jake had ever heard before. Roars, clicks, whistles, and electronic tones blended together into a symphony of anticipation. The translation systems worked overtime, and Jake caught fragments of conversations in dozens of languages. "Look how small it is," said one voice. "The human won't last 5 minutes," said another. "This will be over quickly," added a third. Jake ignored the comments and focused on studying the arena. The floor was made of the same crystal material as the rest of the city, but it had been roughened to provide better footing. Energy barriers created walls about 30 feet high, and weapon platforms had been placed at various points around the fighting space. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all forms," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Welcome to the trial of combat that will determine humanity's worthiness to join the Galactic Council." The crowd noise increased as Councilor Zektar's massive form appeared on a platform above the arena. The Vorthic leader looked even more intimidating than he had in the council chambers, his dark scales gleaming under the arena lights. His forearms gestured dramatically as he addressed the assembly. "Today, the human species sends their champion to face our greatest warrior," Zektar announced. "When their fighter falls, as all weak beings must, humanity will learn their proper place in the galaxy." Jake felt anger flash through him at the alien's arrogant words, but he pushed the emotion aside. Anger would make him careless, and he couldn't afford any mistakes against an opponent like this. A doorway opened on the opposite side of the arena, and Jake got his first look at the creature he would have to fight. Gorthik the Destroyer was even more terrifying in person than he had been in the video recordings. The Vorthik warrior stood nearly 10 feet tall and had to weigh close to 1,000 pounds. His natural armor plating covered most of his body like a suit of living steel, and his forearms ended in claws that could tear through metal. The alien champion's eyes glowed like molten gold as he surveyed the arena, and when his gaze fell on Jake, his mouth opened in what might have been a smile. Rows of razor-sharp teeth gleamed in the crystal light, and a sound like distant thunder rumbled from his chest. "Is that the human?" Gorthik asked, his voice booming through the translation system. "It looks even smaller than I expected." Jake stepped forward into the arena, and the noise from the spectators grew even louder. He could feel thousands of alien eyes watching his every move, most of them expecting to see him die in the next few minutes. The weight of representing his entire species pressed down on him, but he had carried heavy burdens before. "Human," Gorthik called out, "I have fought warriors from 47 different worlds. I have defeated creatures twice my size and champions with 1,000 years of training. You are nothing but meat and bone. Why do you not surrender now and spare yourself the pain?" Jake checked his weapons one final time and activated his energy shield. The barrier of pure energy flickered to life around him, glowing softly in the arena light. "Because," he said loudly enough for his voice to carry through the translation system, "I'm here to win." Laughter erupted from the spectator sections. The sound was like an avalanche of rocks mixed with the screams of metal being torn apart. Even some of the council members were making sounds that Jake assumed were their versions of laughter. "Begin," Zektar shouted. Gorthik immediately charged forward with surprising speed for something his size. His massive feet shook the crystal floor as he ran, and his forearms spread wide to grab his opponent. The alien champion's plasma cannon, a weapon twice the size of Jake's rifle, fired rapid bursts of energy that lit up the arena like lightning. Jake didn't try to meet the charge head-on. Instead, he dove to the side, rolling behind one of the weapon platforms as plasma bolts scorched the crystal where he had been standing. The alien enhancement suit made him faster than any human had a right to be, but he was still much slower than his opponent. "Running already?" Gorthik roared, changing direction to follow Jake's movement. "Face me like a warrior." Jake used the arena's terrain to his advantage, staying behind cover and moving constantly. He fired carefully aimed shots at the joints in Gorthik's armor, looking for weak spots that might exist. His plasma rifle was smaller than the alien's weapon, but it was also more accurate. The battle turned into a deadly game of cat and mouse. Gorthik relied on overwhelming firepower and brute force, trying to corner Jake in areas where his superior reach and strength would decide the fight quickly. Jake used mobility and precision, hitting his target and moving before the alien could respond. Minutes passed, and something unexpected began to happen. Jake was not only surviving the alien's attacks, but he was actually landing hits. His precise shots found gaps in Gorthik's armor that no previous opponent had ever targeted. Small wounds began to appear on the alien champion's arms and legs. The spectator noise changed from amused laughter to surprised murmurs. Several council members leaned forward in their seats, clearly not expecting the fight to last this long. Jake could hear fragments of translated conversation expressing shock that a human was actually landing effective attacks. "Impossible," said one voice. "How is it still alive?" asked another. "The human is faster than our projections indicated," added a third. Gorthik's golden eyes began to show frustration as his usual tactics failed to end the fight quickly. He abandoned his ranged weapons and charged forward for close combat, confident that his physical superiority would crush the small human once and for all. Jake barely avoided the alien's claws as Gorthik swept all four arms through the space where he had been standing. The wind from the missed attack was strong enough to knock Jake off balance, and he stumbled as he tried to get clear. "Now you die!" Gorthik bellowed, lunging forward with all four claws extended. Jake made a decision that went against every survival instinct he had. Instead of continuing to run, he stepped directly into the alien's attack. Gorthic's claws raked across his chest, tearing through the enhancement suit and drawing blood. But Jake's sacrifice gave him the opening he needed. The alien champion was overextended from his attack, his massive body committed to a forward motion he couldn't change. Jake drew his energy blade and drove it upward, finding the one gap in Gorthic's armor that no opponent had ever discovered. A small space where the neck armor met the chest plating. The energy blade sliced through alien flesh and muscle, severing the primary nerve cluster that controlled Gorthic's motor functions. The massive warrior's eyes went wide with shock as his body suddenly refused to obey his commands. Gorthic crashed to the crystal floor like a falling building, his 1,000-pound body shaking the entire arena. He tried to speak, but only strange sounds came from his throat. His golden eyes looked up at Jake with something that might have been respect mixed with disbelief. Jake stood over his fallen opponent, bleeding from the claw marks across his chest, but still very much alive. His energy shield flickered and died as its power finally ran out, but he no longer needed it. The fight was over. The arena fell completely silent. Thousands of alien beings sat in stunned shock, unable to process what they had just witnessed. The human, the small, weak creature they had dismissed as worthless, had defeated the greatest champion in Vorthak history. Jake looked up at the council platform where Zektar sat frozen in disbelief. The Vorthak leader's mouth was open, showing his razor teeth, but no sound came out. Around him, the other council members whispered among themselves in voices too quiet for the translation systems to pick up. Slowly, Jake knelt beside Gorthok and helped the paralyzed warrior sit up. The alien champion couldn't move his arms or legs, but his eyes showed that his mind was still sharp. Jake activated his suit's medical systems and began treating the nerve damage he had caused. Why? Gorthik managed to whisper, his voice barely audible. Because, Jake replied as he worked to stabilize his opponent's condition, that's what humans do. We help each other when the fighting is over. The alien champion's golden eyes studied Jake's face for a long moment. Then, despite his paralysis, Gorthik managed to speak clearly enough for the translation system to carry his words throughout the arena. The crystal arena remained silent for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Jake Sullivan stood in the center of the fighting space, blood slowly seeping through his torn enhancement suit, while thousands of alien beings struggled to understand what they had just witnessed. The human champion, the creature they had dismissed as weak and primitive, had done something no warrior in galactic history had ever accomplished. He had defeated Gorthik the Destroyer. Medical teams from several different species rushed onto the arena floor to help with Gorthik's treatment. Jake stepped back to give them room to work, but he kept a careful eye on the paralyzed Vorthak warrior. Despite winning the fight, Jake felt no satisfaction in seeing his opponent helpless. The alien had fought with honor and skill and deserved to be treated with respect. Ambassador Helen Carter was the first human to reach Jake's side. Her diplomatic training had prepared her for many situations, but nothing quite like this. Her hands shook as she examined the claw marks across his chest, but her voice remained steady. "Jake, how badly are you hurt?" she asked, pulling a medical scanner from her emergency kit. "I'll live," Jake replied, though he was starting to feel dizzy from blood loss. "How's Gorthik doing?" Ambassador Carter looked surprised by the question. "You're worried about him? He was trying to kill you 5 minutes ago." "He was doing his job, just like I was doing mine," Jake said. "The fight's over now. What matters is making sure he recovers." From the spectator sections came a new sound. Alien voices discussing the battle in hushed, amazed tones. The translation systems picked up fragments of conversation in dozens of different languages, and for the first time since humanity had made contact, the comments were not dismissive or mocking. "Did you see how the human moved?" asked one voice. "Those tactics were unlike anything in our combat databases," said another. "The human showed mercy to a defeated enemy," added a third. "When has any species ever done that in council combat?" Counselor Zektar slowly rose from his seat on the council platform. The massive Vorthak leader looked like he had aged years in the last few minutes. His golden eyes, so full of confidence and arrogance before the fight, now showed confusion in something. That might have been fear. "This is impossible," Zektar said, his voice carrying clearly through the arena. "No creature that small and weak could defeat our greatest champion. There must be some deception, some trick we have not discovered." Jake looked up at the alien leader, his blue eyes calm despite the pain from his wounds. "No tricks," he said, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I won because humans have learned to fight smart, not just hard. We've spent thousands of years facing enemies bigger and stronger than us. We've learned to survive by using our minds instead of just our muscles." Counselor Thren, the energy being from the ethereal collective, suddenly spoke for the first time. Since the fight began, the crystal shell containing his consciousness pulsed with bright blue light as he processed what he had witnessed. "The human employed combat algorithms that do not exist in our databases," Thren announced. His tactical responses were completely unpredictable based on standard fighting patterns. This suggests a level of cognitive flexibility that we severely underestimated. Other council members began to add their own observations. The representative from the Hive Collective noted that Jake had made decisions independently without any outside guidance, something their species found difficult to understand. The delegate from the Aquatic Dominion pointed out that humans had adapted to fighting in environments ranging from underwater to the vacuum of space. As the medical teams finished stabilizing Gorthek, the Vorthek champion was carefully moved to a floating medical platform. Despite his paralysis, he managed to turn his head toward Jake and spoke in a voice that carried throughout the arena. "Human warrior," Gorthek said, each word requiring obvious effort. "I have fought for 30 years across 47 worlds. I have defeated champions who trained for centuries. But today, you have taught me something new about what it means to be strong." The alien champion paused, gathering his strength to continue. "You did not win because you were bigger or faster or stronger than me. You won because you thought differently. You saw possibilities that I could not see. You found weaknesses that no warrior has ever found before." Jake walked over to the medical platform, ignoring Ambassador Carter's attempts to get him to seek treatment for his own injuries. He looked down at the massive alien warrior with genuine respect. "You fought with honor," Jake said. "In my culture, that matters more than winning or losing. I hope your injuries heal quickly and completely." Gorthek's golden eyes widened with surprise. "You wish for my recovery? Even though I tried to kill you? You were defending your people's honor, just like I was defending mine," Jake replied. "That's something I can respect, even from an enemy." The exchange between the two warriors was broadcast throughout the arena, and Jake could hear the alien spectators discussing it with increasing amazement. Several species began talking about human concepts of honor and mercy that they had never encountered before. Ambassador Carter finally convinced Jake to sit down and receive medical treatment for his wounds. As the human medical team worked on cleaning and bandaging his injuries, the Galactic Council began an emergency session to discuss what they had witnessed. Counselor Zektar was the first to speak, though his voice lacked the confidence and arrogance it had carried before the fight. "The human has fulfilled the terms of our challenge. He has defeated our champion in single combat. However, this result raises new questions about our assessment of their species." "Indeed," added Thren, his crystalline form pulsing with rapid calculations. "We evaluated humanity based on physical parameters and technological development. We failed to account for cognitive adaptability and tactical innovation. This represents a significant error in our analysis." The debate that followed was unlike anything the Council had experienced before. For the first time, species after species began to reconsider their opinions about humanity. The Silicon Brotherhood noted that humans had created art and culture despite their biological limitations. The Gaseous Collective pointed out that humans had achieved spaceflight using primitive technology through pure determination. "Perhaps," said the representative from the Ancient Dominion, a species so old that they remembered the formation of the first galactic alliances, "we have been measuring strength incorrectly. This human has shown us that true power comes not from physical capabilities, but from the ability to adapt and overcome obstacles through intelligence and creativity. As the council debate continued, Jake finished receiving medical treatment and was finally able to stand without feeling dizzy. His chest was wrapped in bandages, but the alien medical technology had already begun accelerating his healing process. He would be fully recovered within days instead of weeks. Ambassador Carter approached him with a smile that she couldn't quite hide. Jake, I think you should hear this. The council is voting on humanity's membership application. The preliminary count is 38 species in favor, 7 opposed, and 2 abstaining. Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he hadn't even realized was there. So we're in? We're in, Ambassador Carter confirmed. But more than that, they want to establish cultural and military exchange programs. They want to learn from us. The formal announcement came an hour later as Jake stood on the arena floor surrounded by representatives from dozens of alien species. Councillor Zektar, looking humbled but respectful, read the official decision. By vote of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby granted full membership in our alliance. Furthermore, we acknowledge that our previous assessment of human capabilities was incomplete and flawed. The human species brings unique perspectives and abilities that will strengthen our collective civilization. The alien leader paused and looked directly at Jake. Human warrior, you have not only won your challenge, but you have taught us all something important about the nature of strength and honor. Your species is welcome among the stars. As celebrations began throughout the Crystal City, Jake found himself thinking not about the victory or the honor, but about the future. Humanity would now have access to technologies and knowledge from dozens of advanced civilizations. They would explore new worlds, meet new species, and contribute to the growth of galactic society, but most importantly, they had proven that being human meant something special in the galaxy. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they approached problems differently. They found solutions where others saw only obstacles. They showed mercy to enemies and honor in victory. 6 months later, Jake stood in the training facility in Virginia Beach, working with a new group of Navy SEAL candidates. The young sailors looked at him with obvious awe, knowing that he was the human who had changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Sir, one of the trainees asked, what was it like fighting that alien champion? Jake paused in his demonstration of alien combat techniques, thinking about how to answer. It was like any other mission, he said finally. You assess the situation, you use your training, and you find a way to complete the objective. The only difference was that this time, the whole galaxy was watching.